hey, we're going to need, a team that is going to need to play like a team, and maybe they should be glad that this next game is going to be at night on prime time where the sun can't get in their eyes. The Dallas Cowboys hosting Turtles, Texans, and as is a bulletin board sports tradition, if we've got Texans, we've got a Turtle rant on deck. Turtle, what's going down with the Texans at this point?
I am gonna try to not rant like last time. I think I've calmed down, but I might get amped up again. All right, so let's address the debacle that was Sunday Night Football. Wow, I mean, I being at the game, the first half was incredible, like exactly what I would expect out of a D'Amico Ryans led defense. Get pressure on Goff. We've seen Goff be an entirely different quarterback when he's under pressure, and that's exactly what they did. The scheme was great in the first half. Daniil Hunter and Danico Autry. Credit to Danico Autry for coming in and filling in for Will Anderson. Roll Tide, and playing good football. But yeah, first half offense, they couldn't run the ball. The defense kind of generated their opportunities for them, but CJ looked like old CJ in the first half. He was throwing guys open. He was on time with his throws, passing the ball to Tank Dell. John Mechie, Roll Tide, got involved at the end. Career day from John Mechie, actually. And things looked to be running smoothly in the first half. And then what has been the issue all season with this team, the second half rolled along. And boy, it is a mark of absolutely terrible coaching to come out and since week 6, this team has not scored an offensive touchdown in the second half. They did it again and put up a goose egg in the second half and made 0 second half adjustments for the I don't know, I would say at this point 10th week in a row, because it's been 10 games and it's been a problem all year. And that falls directly on D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick. And every week they've come out and they've said, we just have to execute better. We just have to execute better. Well, when you're running the ball on first and second down and you're the worst team in the league by EPA standards on first and second down running the ball, they need to start playing to their strengths. And I think that's been the two main issues, that the stubbornness to run the football, I've mentioned it all year, has been a problem for the Texans. It puts CJ into these impossible third and longs. They have a big issue with penalties as well that they still seem to commit. The offensive line, look, I've said it all year as well. These guys are highly paid and highly drafted. Some of them, like Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard and Shaq Mason, have played at high level in the NFL and in prior years. And there's just something off with the communication, the effort, or quite possibly both. The move to Juice Scruggs to left guard didn't pan out. Juice Scruggs is in a world of hell all day. Jarrett Patterson at center held up okay, but not much better from the offensive line in the first half, pass protecting. Second half, the wheels fell off again. And look, I was telling you guys earlier in the pod, there are some major, major similarities right now between the Texans and the Bears. Maybe not to the dreadfulness extent of the Bears, but offensive coordinator not adjusting, not calling, play calling being a major issue, no offensive adjustments in halftime. Other teams out scheming the Texans coaching staff at halftime, on both offense and defense. Look, it's a major problem. It's a major problem, and this team is, I think, the most discouraging thing for being a Texans fan is kind of like the Bears too, where we invested a lot in the offseason, got a bunch of shiny new toys, and quite frankly, the ceiling is about the same as it was last year. They're going to win their absolutely shitty division, and they're going to maybe win a playoff game at home, depending on who they play. And then they'll get trounced by either Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore in the second round. And that's just where we're at as a team. And quite frankly, I'm at the point where maybe I have to admit they're probably not as good as I thought they were going to be. When it comes to this game against Dallas, they should beat Dallas, but I can't trust this team, not with the way that they played. They played down to competition all year outside of the Patriots game. Um, it's on the road. If they had won against Detroit after giving up that lead, and let's say they won on a last second field goal instead of Detroit, I would see maybe it's a trap game scenario. The fact that they lost the way they did, they've lost honestly 2 weeks in a row. If you loop in that Jets game in just excruciatingly bad fashion with bad second half football, I would love to see a trouncing, a complete game, a game like the Eagles just had against the Cowboys. Beat them mercilessly, like 35-6. I just don't know if that's in the team's cards right now. And I don't know if they demote Bobby Slowick and give Gerard Johnson play calling duties. Um, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm sick and tired of hearing D'Amico Ryans go up every single Sunday and Monday and say we have to just execute better. That's you've been saying for 10 weeks, and it's clear there's some sort of disconnect between what you're coaching and what the players are hearing, because the players aren't changing. They're making the same mistakes every single week. Um, and from what I've heard, they had a players only meeting last week, um, led to a good first half, and then they collapsed. Apparently, there's another players only meeting being held tomorrow. Um, what's going on in those player only meetings? I don't know. I've been seeing rumors that like, oh, D'Amico's lost the locker room. I don't think that. The one main gripe that I'm going to end with on this rant is, D'Amico Ryans went on his press conference yesterday and said, CJ's got to play better. And I agree, CJ does have to play better. He can't make the mistakes that he made in the second half. But if you're going to hold CJ accountable publicly, then it's about time that Bobby Slowick gets held accountable publicly as well for just the stubbornness and lack of creativity and adjustments throughout the entire year. Because quite frankly, even without Stephon Diggs, this team is based off its talent is severely underwhelming on offense, and the only thing I can point to as being a major issue is coaching, um, and offensive line communication and play, but that falls into coaching as well. So there's my
Are you
rant.
are you
Yeah,
That
surprised that they didn't make a move to bring in
I'm
either more protection for C.J. Stroud, or to make up for the Stephon Diggs loss and the injury to Nico Collins, at least give him one other viable weapon on the outside? I mean, I don't know who would be available, but
Yeah, Nico Collins will be back this week. I was actually shocked he didn't play on Sunday just from him getting activated, but the Texans tend to take injuries really conservatively. I think if that was a playoff game, Nico Collins is out there um, on Sunday, but they tend to treat things conservatively. Am I shocked that they didn't make a move? Not necessarily, because Nick Casario has gone on my dad's show, Pain and Pendergast, a lot of times, and he said, they typically don't like making in-season trades just from a asset and continuity standpoint. Um, I am a bit surprised they didn't go out and get a defensive back, actually, rather than an offensive lineman. I would have liked an offensive lineman, but with Kamari Laster suffering a concussion because Jimmy Ward wants to take a terrible angle and just obliterate his own player, which I didn't even mention Jimmy Ward in my rant. He can go ahead and take a seat on the bench and play Kalen Bullock and Eric Murray for all I care, because Jimmy Ward, when he's out there, is just an absolute out of control banshee, injuring our only other good corner by just friendly fire. But yeah, I'm surprised they didn't add a corner. I think they were in talks with Marshawn Lattimore, but they just didn't meet the price that the Commanders gave up. I am surprised they didn't add another piece in the back end. Uh, we should get Jeff Okuda back. I mean, he's a former first round pick who turned into a bust, but at least some depth. You're not playing, Brennan Heilman or whoever we threw out there into the game on Sunday with Kamari Laster out. I don't think it'll matter this week with Laster out, just because the Cowboys have basically CD Lamb, and I guess they got Jonathan Mingo now, but he doesn't scare me. Kevontae Turpin and Jalen Tolbert, like I'm not too scared about the Cowboys, but it'll matter later in the year. So I am surprised they didn't go out and get another DB. But
I mean,
yeah, I'm sick of the
I don't.
offensive line. I'm sick of Bobby Slowick, and I'm sick of Jimmy Ward. And I just got to mention that Titus Howard strip sacking his own quarterback should disqualify him from playing football ever again. And the fact that PFF gave him an above average pass blocking grade against the Lions is despicable. That play itself should have downgraded him by 40 points. How do you strip sack your own quarterback? I mean, that should disqualify you from playing football. It's like he had money on the Lions. And the worst thing about it was on that play, he gave up blocking after he thought he did his job. And the own guy that he gave up blocking on got the sack, which he then strip sacked his own quarterback afterwards. I mean, it's mind boggling how like aloof this offensive lineman is, or offensive line in general, I should say. But
I mean, and I think to that point, I just got to say, Mike, I know you asked about trading for offensive line help. I don't think we will see. I mean, I don't, and I would challenge anyone to show me something. I don't think we've seen an above average offensive lineman get traded, even from a bad team, get traded in the middle of the season to, a contender, even if they need the help. What was Joe Tooney? Was that in season when that trade happened? Because I know that was a good move by the Chiefs. But
that's a good question. I think it happened in the
but I'm
offseason.
just
Yeah, I think it was
the
off season.
point being
Yeah.
especially in season, but even also in the off season, you haven't seen it since Trent Williams, and he almost got killed by the Washington coaching or medical staff, and that's why he
wasn't coming back no matter what.
Yeah, he thought that they almost killed him. So yeah, of course he's going to get traded. But the point being, you don't see elite or even above average offensive linemen get moved in the offseason, and especially not in season, because of how valuable the quarterback is and how prone to injury a quarterback can be. If you have any future tied to your quarterback, and chances are for 90% of the teams in a given season they do, then you're just going to not, that's an untouchable position, I should say, is one of your best offensive linemen. Speaking as a guy who would have loved for the Bears to go after like Quentin Nelson or Bitonio or any of these guys, you'd love to see it, but teams aren't going to move on from them. And then secondly, though, to Turtle's point, when it just tips me off when you say D'Amico Ryan's talking about execution and stressing execution. That's coach speak for throwing your players under the bus is really what you're doing in the media. I mean, when you're saying execute, the players need to execute because Matt Eberflus does it all the time. And it's a PR friendly coach way of saying, this isn't my fault. I'm putting the right plays out there and the players aren't doing their job. So I think it's just, it rings hollow, and it doesn't help a locker room if you're worried about it getting fractured and having the team meetings. Chances are it's not going well if the coach's only reflection is you guys need to be doing better.
Yeah, and I see D'Amico's point as well, because the offensive line doesn't play with a lot of effort. They don't run block well. So, there's blame on both sides, in my opinion. I think the coaching has to account for what the team does well, and they need to put their players in better spots. I also think the players themselves could execute better, if I want to use D'Amico's terms. I mean, I think it's a blend of a problem, but at the end of the day, it all comes back to coaching either way, because there's plenty of examples of good coaches that scheme their way out of weaknesses and can at least mask weaknesses and not, bludgeon your head against the wall with just predictable runs on first and second down. That's part of the reason why maybe pass blocking is tough, because they're in predictable passing downs on third down every single time. Every time. And that falls back on coaching. At some point, throw in the towel and throw some play action in on first down. Mix and match play calling. If you're running the ball on first and second down 70, 80% of the time, guess what? You know what's normally coming. A run play on first down, a run play on second down, and because it's third and long, a pass play on third down. And it's so hard to play quarterback that way. You guys see it with Caleb Williams, how much pressure he's under, and how erratic a quarterback can get no matter how talented they are if the pieces around them start falling, their internal clock gets off. And as great of a quarterback as CJ Stroud is, we've seen that happen even the last couple of weeks. CJ Stroud was pressured on 57% of his dropbacks against the Jets. Last week he was pressured on, I believe it was like 46, and it makes a lot of sense. He's had 50 instances where he's been on 3rd and long this year, and that's 13 more than the second most quarterback. He's got 50 instances of being on 3rd and long, which I believe qualifies as 3rd and 8 or more. And it's 33% higher than the second most quarterback. And I mean, that's just that's insane. The fact that they even have won 6 games doing that is just a testament to how good CJ Stroud is. Because he's put in these hellish nightmare scenarios every game, and he's somehow able to make something of it. I think the most concerning thing, and we've seen it with Caleb Williams too, is the internal clock of a quarterback. CJ Stroud has gotten some happy feet over the last couple of weeks. He's been taking a lot of hits. I'm sure he's banged up. There's some sort of injury that's probably not going on the injury report because he's taken so many shots. And it's starting to throw his timing off. It's starting to throw his rhythm off. We've seen inaccurate passes from him. We saw it twice in the second half against Detroit. He threw a lollipop to Tank that should have been a touchdown. That I'm just that was the worst throw I've ever seen him make, college and pro. He threw another bad interception where he was a little bit inside on a throw. Ball should have been to the outside. Corner picks it off in the first play of the second half. I mean, it needs to get fixed, and I'd like to see Gerard Johnson maybe call plays just to get a different voice, maybe a different mind in there to try something different. And look, I mean, this team's ceiling right now is a 1st or 2nd round exit in the playoffs, and I'm coming to grips with that. And I think the only way they get better in the offseason is invest in offensive line and look to, if things keep going the way they're going, look to hire a different offensive coordinator, because Bobby Slowick is refusing to make, I think, the adjustments that good coaches make at this point. And I'm sick and tired of D'Amico covering it all up as well. And
You're
he's
so
partly
doom and
responsible.
gloom. I feel
I mean,
but okay,
Mike,
all right. I'll give you guys credit though. No, I'll give you guys credit though. I mean, Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie, like your guys on the back end, especially playing safety, I think played really well that game. I mean, those are the guys that forced
Kalen
the
Bullock has
turnovers.
been a
Kalen Bullock,
great
yeah,
asset as a rookie. Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock have arguably been the 2 best, I think, defensive back rookies in this entire season. I mean,
and
you can
your
make an argument for that.
your cornerbacks played really well that past game as well. You know, being able to force the turnovers.
Yeah, it's I have no issues with how the defense is playing, to be quite honest with you. I think the defense is easily the strength of the team. I'm just fired up about the offense because that was supposed to be the strength of the team. That was
Well,
supposed to be the top 5 unit. You
yeah,
know,
I do want to say, just to your point, like a little bit of a pushback is that um, before people really saw Nico, a lot of people don't know Nico Collins. And I think
yeah,
what people are starting to realize, or should start to realize, is that Nico Collins is legitimately AJ Brown, DK Metcalf equivalent, to where he's going to be that much of a focal point to any offense on any NFL football team. So I think in light of that, I think losing him is bigger than any fan, anyone in the locker room could have ever imagined. And I
yeah.
think as long as he's healthy, uh, I just said AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, like, so he's, to me, like, that's a huge aspect of that offense
He's a
that
top
can,
5 receiver.
yeah, and it covers a lot of holes. But to your point, I think the guard spot, you'll definitely need to upgrade. I think it'll be uh, easily doable, though. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
guards that are for sale. James Daniels is coming off of an injury. Aaron Banks will be around, so you'll be able to find a interior offensive lineman like that. I just think the main thing is keeping Nico healthy, and really, as long as Nico's healthy for a playoff run, they got a puncher's shot versus any of those top teams in the
Yeah,
AFC.
I am doom and gloom, and I wanted to rant. Nico Collins is a big aspect, especially with like the screen game. because you see Nico all the time catch these screens, and he's got blocking. He's so big, strong, and fast that he can turn a screen into easily a big chunk play, and you can't run that with Tank Dell or
Right.
Stephon Diggs, really, just because of the type of receivers that those two guys are. I mean, Nico is just a freak when it comes to a size, speed perspective. He's going to cover up a lot of holes. There's no doubt about that. And when he's back, the offense will look better. I'm sure of that. I'm just, it's a band-aid. It's a band-aid to an overarching problem that I think the overarching problem culminated for me on Sunday night at 11 p.m. Being inside that stadium and watching that,
Yeah.
and I'd like to see the overarching problem be solved, because I think you guys, as Bears fans, you guys probably understand it too. Like, there were definitely even times this year where, like, you saw flashes of brilliance from Caleb and like the way the offense could look. But I mean, you knew the overarching problems of Eberflus and Shane Waldron were eventually going to reappear at some point. And, that's kind of how I feel about Nico Collins coming back and Bobby Slowick. Like, Nico Collins coming back will help the offense from like an explosive standpoint and like moving the ball aspect. It's not going to fix the run game overnight, and it's not going to fix the pass protection overnight,
Sure.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But yes, if Nico Collins is healthy for a playoff run, I mean, I think we can beat anybody. We've showed we could play with anybody. It's just you give yourself. Do I think they could win 4 straight playoff games against good teams in the AFC?
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Sure.
But they will have a puncher's chance because they will win their division, barring a significant injury to like C.J. Stroud or something.
And they will smack
There
the
you go.
Cowboys.
And they will smack the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I think
There's the
that's
game break
we
now.
want to get that on the record too. That I think that they're going to get right versus whatever this Cowboys team is.
Do we see Trey Lance? Do we see Trey Lance?
Yeah,
Trey Lance
probably.
sighting?
I think we probably will.
Yeah,
We saw him last week.
We saw him in mop-up duty last week.
I see the Texans winning big in this game, getting right here in interstate rivalry game. I'm sure Mike and Turtle, you guys know the significance of a Texans versus Cowboys game more than we can appreciate. But
and one more thing before we go. I think I will say that I think the injury to Dak Prescott may have saved Mike McCarthy's job for another year. I think this is going to be something he'll be able to point back on, especially if they're able to put together a couple of wins to be like, yeah, what do you think?
Well,
I don't think
and
so.
what and convince Jerry Jones to keep him on. What you're going to be
I think
talking to
Jerry
the guy who's got the
anybody.
guilloine.
I think
guillotine
Jerry's
hanging over your
senile.
neck, and you're like, no, don't do it.
That's
I
true.
think
I mean,
Jerry's
it's
senile.
you can't. It's Mr. Burns. Like, I mean, maybe you can't like deal
It's
with
gonna
him.
be
But
Smithers begging Mr. Burns to not pull the trap door on him. Christian, what were you going to say?
Congratulations, Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
You either end up with another year of Mike McCarthy or you end up with Deion Sanders. Pick your
There you go.
pick your poison.
choose your
And
fighter.
the worst part about it all is I genuinely think Jerry Jones is senile and he's losing his mind in the public eye, in the public forum.
He's reaching that age.
No,
That's
he is.
for sure.
He is for television fans. He is the Logan Roy of the NFL.
Yeah, that's a great
Just
comparison.
kind of
Yeah.
just like a king who's losing his mind.
They say
Yeah.
I don't know if Jonathan Mingo for a fourth is a good idea, and he's like,
Well,
"Damn it, I want my Jonathan Mingo."
yeah, no, and then Mike McCarthy saying that it was based on a draft profile is why they traded for him. Is like, excuse me. I mean, and you said that Jonathan Mingo doesn't scare you. I mean, Jonathan Mingo hasn't proven that he can play wide receiver in the NFL, and they gave up a decent pick for him. I think there were a lot of Panthers fans who would have taken a 7th for him. I think he was in
anything.
Nate Davis territory.
just
opened up the roster spot for him.
On the game, Turtle. I mean, you don't think you'll see an inspired, defensive effort at going up against Cooper Rush, where you're going to want to get to the quarterback. You're going to be playing.
Game.
Yeah, it is an under game for sure. But I mean, I think that may be a bright spot for the Texans just going forward into Monday. Is just It's Cooper Rush. It's in-state. It's in-state rivalry. Pull out the dub by any means possible. It's going to be ugly though.
Yeah, I mean their schedule over the next couple weeks is they've got this shell of a Cowboys team. They play Tennessee at home. They play at Jacksonville. Then they play Miami. Four winnable games over the next month. I mean, if they're going to get back on track, this would be the month to do it over the next 4 weeks. And then they play
Yeah.
the Chiefs at Arrowhead right before Christmas. So, look, I'm sorry to, go full doom and gloom. I'm just, after
No,
being in attendance on Sunday night, I'm so frustrated
no.
with the offensive coordinator. And as Pat and Christian, as you guys know, it's a tough spot to be in.
Well, and I don't want to say, I don't want to co-sign with Mike and Christian on saying that you can't be doom and gloom when you're being a realist. You're being, you're
Yeah.
dealing with real realities of your team, because there are a lot of Bears fans who won't reckon with that and will say, "Oh no, keep Eberflus for another year. Keep this going. Keep continuity going." No, you have to be real, even if it sounds like doom and gloom. You got to keep it real, and then doing that for the past couple of days has gotten Shane Waldron fired, because I don't think that the way the Bears run their organization, they would have fired Shane Waldron without all of the outside pressure or people being doom and gloom, as someone might say.
Keep it up.
Also, I appreciate the take. We like hot takes on Bulletin Board Sports, so
yeah,
you can always bring the doom and gloom and the Texans rant whenever you want.
I'm not going to propaganda the Texans when they don't deserve positive propaganda. If you had me on this pod last year, I mean, I would have probably been, over the moon with how, I mean, they were 6-4 last year at this time too. And I would probably be talking about, how excited I was. The thing is though, expectations change. And when you go out and, again, same thing with the Bears, you go out and you get all these flashy toys and all of a sudden, you've got a franchise quarterback. You've got what looks like on paper a well put together roster. The fans expect more, and we, as fans, we have that entire right to feel that way. And Vegas expected more too, because this win total was at 10. I think the Bears were at 9.5. I'm getting a little bit nervous that both of our teams are going to miss those win totals, and by market standards, that means underachievement. And that means, as fans, we must riot our displeasure at what's going on. So I'm with you guys. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Texans have played well this year, because they haven't. They should have beaten a lot more of these teams by a lot more points, and they shouldn't have lost to some of these teams.